Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown, still suffering from a cold, and that's Matthew Stockton.
You sound like Kathleen Turner again.
Right. Like I've smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day.
Oh, God.
Anyway, we've got lots to talk about, so let's get into it. Well, the introduction first.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're 2 ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
Welcome to our special Remembrance Day episode, and each year on November 11th, Canadians pause to remember the sacrifices made by those who served in the armed forces defending our country and our allies with incredible courage and resolve. Last year, we shared the story of one remarkable Canadian soldier, Leo Major. Leo was a scout and sniper who, against all odds, single-handedly liberated the Dutch town of Zwolle in 1945. Moving under the cover of darkness, he confused and intimidated German forces through a series of daring attacks, leading them to believe an entire Allied battalion was upon them. His incredible bravery and tactical genius not only saved the town, but established him as a true legend. This year, we'll dive into the stories of several more incredible Canadians who, like Leo, faced impossible odds with courage, ingenuity, and the unbreakable Canadian spirit. These people faced unimaginable odds, fought for our freedom and justice, and showed the world the strength of the Canadian spirit. Join us as we honor and remember these heroes. This is Dark Poutine episode 343, Remembrance Day 2024, More Badass Canadians at War. Our first Canadian badass, Corporal Francis Pegamagabau, hailed from the Perry Island Band, now Wasauksing First Nation, an Ojibwe of the Caribou clan. Born on March 9, 1889, he volunteered and fought for the Dominion during the First World War. One of Canada's most decorated Indigenous soldiers, Francis was awarded the Military Medal with 2 bars in Belgium and France during the Great War. Pegamagabau was one of only 39 members of the Canadian Expeditionary Force who received 2 bars in addition to the military medal.
This guy, he wasn't just a soldier in the ranks. Like, I'm looking at him, and we're going to go more into his background and what he did, but
right,
he wasn't just a soldier. Like, he carried a legacy. So every step he took in the battlefield was a reminder of Indigenous warriors that have defended land long before Canada even existed.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Pegamagabau's father passed away from illness when Francis was an infant. After his mother also fell ill, he was brought up by his relatives. In his early years, he worked as a seaman on boats in Georgian Bay. At 21, he learned to read and write English, a skill uncommon in his generation. Pegamagabau was among the first to enlist in the First World War, signing up on August 13, 1914, despite an initial ban on indigenous enlistment. Francis Pegamagabau initially served with the 23rd Northern Pioneers Regiment based in Parry Sound, Ontario, which later became part of the 1st Battalion of the Canadian Expeditionary Force, CEF. Throughout the entirety of World War I, he bravely fought on the Western Front, achieving the rank of corporal on November 1, 1917. Known affectionately as Peggy by his comrades, Pegamagabau quickly established himself as an exceptional soldier, displaying courage and skill that became legendary. His bravery and service were recognized early. In 1916, he became one of the first Canadians to receive the military medal. He earned this initial commendation for repeatedly risking his life to carry essential messages along the front lines during the intense battles of Ypres, Festubert, and Givenchy. A profoundly spiritual man, Pegamagabau carried an Ojibwe medicine pouch which he believed would protect him. He faced immense dangers, including being present during the Second Battle of Ypres, a notorious event where the German army introduced chlorine gas as a weapon. His great-grandson, Dr. Brian McGuinness, later shared that Pegamagabau developed severe respiratory issues due to the exposure, to the extent that he eventually had to sleep sitting up due to difficulty breathing.
Yeah, all that grit really came with a cost, right?
Yeah.
This guy had a stacking up of scars that you can't see, but you can't shake off either. And I think, just imagine like every difficult breath that you took for the rest of your life is sort of like a reminder of this war.
Yeah.
We talked about this, I think it was last year at this time. It's incredible we can talk about like what year we talked about things now, Mike.
Yeah.
My grandfather, who was in a German Nazi prisoner of war camp, like was sleeping on like wet wood for a number of years and had some ongoing problems from that.
Yeah, my grandfather, Dad's dad, was in World War I, and he would not eat mutton because that's all that they were fed, essentially. So he said every time he ate that, it reminded him of the war.
Do you know the expression mutton dressed as lamb?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that expression.
Yeah, that's me. It's all the makeup.
It's all the makeup.
Yeah. Wounded in the leg in September 1916 during combat in France, Pegamagabau returned to the front lines to participate in the infamous Passchendaele Offensive, one of the war's bloodiest engagements. Despite the staggering loss of 16,000 Allied soldiers, he performed commendable service, earning him his first bar to the military medal. His commendation highlights his skill under pressure, quote, "At Passchendaele, November 6th, 7th, 1917, this NCO, non-commissioned officer, did excellent work. Before and after the attack, he kept in touch with the flanks, advising the units he had seen, this information proving the success of the attack and saving valuable time in consolidating. He also guided the relief to its proper place after it had become mixed up." End quote. For his heroism during the Battle of Scarpe in August 1918, Pegamagabau earned a second bar to his military medal. His commendation for this action underscores his tenacity in the face of danger. Quote, "During the operations of August 30th, 1918 at Oryx Trench near Upton Wood, when his company were almost out of ammunition and in danger of being surrounded, this NCO went over the top under heavy machine gun and rifle fire and brought back sufficient ammunition to enable the post to carry on and assist in repulsing heavy enemy counterattacks." End quote. His marksmanship as a sniper was equally renowned. Though challenging to confirm, he is credited with an impressive 378 kills. Despite this remarkable record, Pegamagabau was a humble man who never discussed his work as a sniper with his family. Coming from a lineage of warriors, Pegamagabau's great-grandfather fought for the British in the War of 1812. Pegamagabau hoped his service would improve the perception of Indigenous people in Canada. He expressed this sentiment in a 1919 interview with the Toronto Evening Telegram, quote, "I went to war voluntarily just as quick as the white man." End quote. On the afternoon of August 27, 1919, he was awarded his military medal and 2 bars by Edward, the Prince of Wales and future King Edward VIII, during a ceremony at the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. He was among 200 returning soldiers who received their honors that day before a crowd estimated by Toronto newspapers to exceed 50,000 people.
I can just imagine Peggy standing there in front of all those people, this legendary guy getting his due. But I wonder if he'd be like me. Like, in my mind, I'd be like, but I'm just a kid from Perry Island. And no matter what you do in life, I think even, unless you're like a megalomaniac, right? Deep down inside, it's just like, I'm just this dude, right?
Yeah.
That also goes to show, Mike, that people can do more than they think they can.
It's true.
You're all just dudes and dames. So
Right.
Yep.
After his return to Canada, he found that many of the same restrictions affecting Indigenous communities persisted despite how hard he'd fought for the freedom of all Canadians. Pegamagabau settled in what is now Wasauksing First Nation near Parry Sound, marrying Eva Tranche in 1919 and raising 4 sons and 2 daughters. However, reserve life was challenging for this decorated veteran who suffered declining health shortly after his discharge. His primary work was guiding anglers and hunters, though he briefly served on the Department of Marine and Fisheries ship Granville. In May 1919, Pegamagabau was hospitalized with chest pains and diagnosed with an enlarged heart, likely from pneumonia during the war. Despite a doctor's recommendation for a 30% disability rating, he was initially denied a pension, only receiving 10% in 1930 for bronchitis and emphysema, later raised to 20%. Pegamagabau's medical records also noted injuries from being buried by shell fire, though psychiatric care for shell shock was limited at the time. Despite his heroism, his applications for a soldier settlement loan were repeatedly denied, as the local Indian agent doubted his farming prospects. Attempts by the Parry Island Band Council to secure him a loan for a team of horses were vetoed by Indian Affairs. Seeking the camaraderie and respect he'd experienced in battle, Pegamagabau joined Alpha Company of the 23rd Northern Pioneers Militia in the 1920s, later serving as Sergeant Major until its 1936 amalgamation. Ironically, a new war finally brought financial stability. In 1941, Pegamagabau became a guard at Defense Industries Limited near Parry Sound, a wartime explosives plant. He dedicated himself to advocating for Indigenous rights and became a counselor. When elected chief of the Parry Island Band in January 1921, Francis Pegamagabau addressed treaty violations and infringements on the land guaranteed by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. Historian Robin Jarvis Brownlee noted that Parry Sound agent John McLean Daly often depicted Indigenous leaders as irrational to discredit their complaints. Daly even exploited claims of Pegamagabau's mental instability to undermine his efforts, including his attempts to organize bands to petition King George V on treaty grievances directly. Pegamagabau drew inspiration from Lieutenant Frederick Ogilvie Loft, founder of the League of Indians of Canada, to advocate for Indigenous rights and unity. The Parry Island Band Council joined the League of Indians, and Pegamagabau became increasingly active in voicing grievances against Indian affairs. In October 1943, he joined a national delegation in Ottawa advocating for First Nations exemption from income tax and conscription. He helped found the Brotherhood of Canadian Indians, Canada's first national Indigenous organization. He later became a member of the National Indian Government and was elected its Supreme Chief in 1949 and 1950.
Yeah, he wasn't just raising his voice for himself. He was talking for generations of Indigenous people who deserved a lot better than they're treated here.
Yeah, I love that he took his notoriety and turned it into something for positivity and social change. And
not that the bastards moved in any way.
What's that? What do you mean?
I look at all these people that fought for so much.
Yeah.
And were just completely ignored by the people of this country and the government of this country and the institutions of this country. Yeah. It's really sad. It really is.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Francis passed away on August 5th, 1952, at his home due to a heart attack. His legacy endures. He was inducted into the Indian Hall of Fame, and in 2006, the headquarters of the 3rd Canadian Ranger Patrol Group at Canadian Forces Base Borden was renamed in his honor, a testament to his enduring contributions and heroism. On June 21st, 2016, a bronze monument honoring Sergeant Major Francis Pegamagabau was unveiled in Parry Sound, Ontario. Created by sculptor Tyler Fovell, the 10-foot-high statue depicts Pegamagabau in his wartime uniform, accompanied by an eagle and caribou. Pegamagabau was the most decorated Indigenous soldier in World War I. Our next badass is Private Ernest Alvia Smoky Smith, the only Canadian private to be awarded the Victoria Cross after nearly single-handedly holding off German tanks and soldiers during the Italian campaign in World War II.
So are you going to share this photo on the website?
I probably should.
So we're looking at a very sultry photo of Smokey. Like, it looks like he's looking at you from across the bar, showing a little bit of leg under his kilt.
Yeah, and he's a little glassy-eyed, so he was known, as we'll see, he was known to have a drink or two, so he may have had that before he had this picture taken.
Yeah.
Smoky Smith's journey to becoming a Canadian war hero began amid the Great Depression. Born on May 3, 1914, in New Westminster, British Columbia, Smith came of age during an economic hardship that now affected millions across North America. Like many of his contemporaries, he struggled to find steady employment in the years leading up to World War II. This challenging period shaped Smith's resilient character and resourcefulness, traits that would serve him well in the future. As the world plunged into conflict, Smith made a decision that would alter the course of his life. On March 5, 1940, at 25, he enlisted in the Canadian Army, joining the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada. This choice was typical for young men of his generation, many of whom saw military service as both a patriotic duty and an opportunity for stable employment. Smith's enlistment marked the beginning of his transformation from a civilian struggling with the economic realities of the Depression to a soldier who would eventually be recognized for exceptional bravery. Following his enlistment, Smith embarked on a rigorous training regimen designed to prepare him for the challenges of warfare. He underwent basic training with the Royal Canadian Regiment in Toronto, where he learned fundamental military skills and discipline. From there, he moved on to Camp Borden, mentioned above as later being renamed for Francis Pegamagabau, for more advanced training. These experiences were crucial in molding Smith into a capable soldier, equipping him with the skills and knowledge he would need to survive and excel in combat situations.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this, like all these, it was a rough life back then. And I think everything he went through was essentially training to be a soldier, right? Like every scrap of tough luck was sort of fuel to fight ahead.
Smith's baptism by fire came in 1943 when at 29 he participated in Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily. On July 10, 1943, as part of the 1st Canadian Infantry Division, Smith landed on the shores of Sicily, marking the beginning of the Italian campaign. This operation was pivotal in the war, opening a new front against the Axis powers and beginning the long push to liberate Italy. Throughout the Sicily and Italian campaigns, which lasted from July 1943 to February 1945, Smith actively participated in numerous engagements. One of the most notable battles he fought was the Battle of Ortona in December 1943. This intense urban conflict, often called Little Stalingrad, was characterized by brutal house-to-house fighting. The battle tested the limits of Smith and his fellow soldiers, providing valuable combat experience that would prove crucial in future engagements. Interestingly, Smith's military career was not without its share of controversies. He gained a reputation as something of a maverick, often finding himself at odds with military discipline. This was evidenced by his repeated promotions to corporal, 9 times in total, each followed by a demotion back to private. These incidents suggested a complex character who, while undoubtedly brave and capable, struggled with certain aspects of military life. This rebellious streak, however, may have contributed to the quick thinking and independent action that would later distinguish him in battle.
You know, mavericks get things done, not by following the path, but forging their own, and it ruffles a few feathers along the way. I want to mention, if I don't know if you've seen it, Mike, but it's fantastic on Amazon. There's the story about the founding of the SAS.
Okay, interesting.
And it's called Rogue Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all guys like this.
Yeah,
they were absolutely bonkers.
Yeah,
it is such a good story. So give it a watch. Or Rogue Heroes is it called?
There's a book called Bravo 20 by Andy McNabb. Now, people talk about McNabb's exploits that he talks about in the book were sort of not exactly 100% true, but talking about selection for the SAS and how it came about and what you have to go through to actually get into that branch of the service is amazing.
Watch this movie, this show. It's called Rogue Heroes. Actually, not Warriors. It is so fun. It's actually fun. So
I'll check it out
anyway. And all these people that we're talking about today could have very, very easily been the early SAS guys.
Yeah, it's why I call them badasses, because they really are.
Yep.
In many, many ways. As the Allied forces pushed northward through Italy in the autumn of 1944, Smith and his comrades faced increasingly desperate German resistance. The campaign had been long and grueling, with each advance coming at a high cost. On the night of October 21st to 22nd, 1944, Smith performed extraordinary acts of bravery at the River Savio that would earn him the Victoria Cross, the highest military honor in the Commonwealth. His citation for the Victoria Cross reads, quote, "In Italy, on the night of the 21st to 22nd of October 1944, a Canadian infantry brigade was ordered to establish a bridgehead across the Savio River. The Seaforth Highlanders of Canada were selected as the spearhead of the attack, and in weather most unfavorable to the operation, they crossed the river and captured their objectives in spite of strong opposition from the enemy. Torrential rain had caused the Savio River to rise 6 feet in 5 hours, and as the soft vertical banks made it impossible to bridge the river, no tanks or anti-tank guns could be taken across the raging stream to the support of the rifle companies. As the right forward company was consolidating its objective, it was suddenly counterattacked by a troop of 3 Mark V Panther tanks, supported by 2 self-propelled guns and about 30 infantry, and the situation appeared almost hopeless. Under heavy fire from the approaching enemy tanks, Private Smith, showing great initiative and inspiring leadership, led his anti-tank rocket launcher group of 2 men across an open field to a position from which the weapon could be best employed. Leaving 1 man on the weapon, Private Smith crossed the road with a companion and obtained another shoulder-fired rocket launcher. Almost immediately, the enemy tank came down the road, firing its machine guns along the line of the ditches. Private Smith's comrade was wounded. At a range of 30 feet and having to expose himself to the full view of the enemy, Private Smith fired a rocket and hit the tank, putting it out of action. 10 German infantry immediately jumped off the back of the tank and charged him with Schmeissers, submachine guns, and grenades. Without hesitation, Private Smith moved out onto the road and with his Tommy gun at point-blank range, killed 4 Germans and drove the remainder back. Almost immediately, another tank opened fire and more enemy infantry closed in on Smith's position. Obtaining some abandoned Tommy gun magazines from a ditch, he steadfastly held his position, protecting his comrade and fighting the enemy with his Tommy gun until they finally gave up and withdrew in disorder. 1 tank and both self-propelled guns had been destroyed by this time, but yet another tank swept the area with fire from a longer range. Private Smith, still showing utter contempt for enemy fire, helped his wounded friend to cover and obtained medical aid for him behind a nearby building. He then returned to his position beside the road to await the possibility of a future enemy attack. No further immediate attack developed, and as a result, the battalion was able to consolidate the bridgehead position so vital to the success of the whole operation, which led to the eventual capture of San Giorgio di Casena and a further advance to the Ronco River. Thus, by the dogged determination, outstanding devotion to duty, and superb gallantry of this private soldier, his comrades were so inspired that the bridgehead was held firm against all enemy attacks, pending the arrival of tanks and anti-tank guns some hours later. End quote.
These words paint a picture of absolute guts.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't just a citation. I didn't realize this is like a play-by-play of a one-man wall against an army, right?
Yep.
And it shows that Smokey turned what looked like a suicide mission into a stand that gave his whole company a fighting chance.
A well-known troublemaker and binge drinker who disappeared from time to time, Smith was locked up to ensure that he'd be present for the presentation of his Victoria Cross by King George VI. He was presented with his award at Buckingham Palace. When asked by Maclean's magazine what it was like to meet the king, Smokey said, quote, "It was kind of astounding. I go to Buckingham Palace and I say to the guard, 'What am I supposed to do?' He says, 'You do exactly as I do. Take a bow from the hips.' I said, 'Oh Christ, you think I'm going to do that? You're crazy.' I just saluted and that was it. I was given the Victoria Cross and told to put it in my pocket. I wasn't allowed to wear it for at least 3 days so the Canadian newspapers would have it the same time as the British ones. So for 3 days I'm sitting in a bar in London drinking to beat hell. Someone came in and said, 'Okay, Smokey, you can put on that medal now.' So I took it out and put it on my chest, and I never bought another drink that day." End quote.
So, not to make light of alcoholism, but it's hilarious that he was locked up so he'd show up, first of all.
Yeah.
And secondly, you know, it's so funny, like, when you're reading that, so often in what I've done with advertising or marketing, and press releases and everything, like, holding back things for a number of days so that it can launch at the same time in different countries. I've actually done that, not for medals of honor, but it's so frustrating because you want to get it out.
Yeah. Smokey Smith married Esther Weston in 1947. They had 2 children, David and Norma Jean. After his military retirement, the couple ran Smith Travel from 1969 to 1992, leading tours to World War II sites. Esther passed away in 1996, 4 years after their retirement. In his later years, Smokey Smith became the last living Canadian Victoria Cross recipient in 2000. He devoted his time to veteran causes, attending global Remembrance Day ceremonies, and supporting the consecration of Canada's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Honored with the Order of Canada in 1995, with the Order of British Columbia in 2002, Smith also unveiled a Canadian stamp featuring the Victoria Cross in 2004, and a rail car was dedicated to him by the Canadian Pacific Railway in 2003. Smokey Smith passed away at his Vancouver home on August 3, 2005 at 91. Honored as only the 9th person to lie in state in the House of Commons, he was remembered with flags at half-mast on August 9th. After lying in repose at Vancouver's Seaforth Armory, he received a full military funeral on August 13th, and his ashes were later scattered at sea in the Gulf of Georgia. Smith bequeathed his Victoria Cross and medals to the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada, where they remain in safekeeping with replicas on display at the Seaforth Highlanders Museum. In 2011, his daughter donated 3 Black Watch uniforms to Montreal, Vancouver, and New Westminster museums. Ernest Smith Park was established in Ottawa in his honor and was assisted by the Royal Canadian Legion. Additionally, in the novel Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein, Camp Sergeant Smokey Smith in the Canadian Rockies may subtly reference Smith, though it's not quite confirmed. More after a quick break. And we are back. Matthew, thoughts so far?
Yeah, these guys are fantastic, and it's like they're just, you know, it's hard to believe that they're real people.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's maybe why we call them heroes, because it's just, and I love how they're all, you hear soldier, right? And you think of like cookie cutter, right? Because that's sort of what an army's supposed to be in some ways, just sort of like, it's an army, right? It's not one warrior, but you have to remember that these are all individual people. Right? They're all individuals, and these stories are important, and to understand what they did, but also who they are, is important.
That's true. Another badass, Tommy Prince, was born on October 25th, 1915, in a humble canvas tent in Petersfield, Manitoba. He was one of 11 children born to Henry and Arabella Prince of the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation. Prince's family had a rich history of leadership and military service, with his great-great-grandfather being revered Saulteaux Chief Pegwee, who led his people from Sault Ste. Marie to Manitoba in the late 1790s. Growing up on the Broken Head Reserve near Scantlebury, Manitoba, Prince learned valuable skills from his father, a hunter and trapper. These early experiences honed his abilities as a marksman and tracker, skills that would prove invaluable in his future military career. Despite facing discrimination and being rejected multiple times, Prince's determination to serve his country remained unwavering. In 1940, at 24, Tommy Prince finally enlisted in the Canadian Army. He initially served as a sapper with the Royal Canadian Engineers. Still, his true calling came when he volunteered for the elite 1st Special Service Force, famously known as the Devil's Brigade. Prince's exceptional outdoor skills and determination made him an ideal candidate for this specialized unit. During World War II, Tommy Prince's exploits became legendary. In February 1944, near Littoria, Italy, he performed one of his most celebrated actions. While on a reconnaissance mission, Prince set up an observation post in an abandoned farmhouse close to German artillery positions. When shellfire cut his communication wire, he ingeniously disguised himself as a farmer, repairing the line in full view of German soldiers who remained oblivious to his true identity. Prince's stealth abilities earned him a fearsome reputation among enemy forces. He often wore moccasins for silent movement, snuck past German guards at night, and left messages in enemy sleeping areas. His actions destroyed German tanks and the capture of over 1,000 German prisoners. Prince was awarded numerous accolades for his extraordinary service, including the Military Medal by King George VI and the Silver Star on behalf of the U.S. President.
Tread lightly and carry a big stick, I guess. I love that he wore moccasins.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's really cool. That's just sort of...
I mean, it was what he was used to doing. Probably hunting kept things quiet, so...
Brilliance, though, right? It's brilliance. It's not following the rules of war and the uniform for very good reasons, and something that's so traditional and old, right, that he was wearing helped him do this. I get off on that. It's so cool.
Yeah. After the war, Prince returned to Canada facing new challenges. Despite his decorated service as an Indigenous man, he was still denied the right to vote in federal elections and did not receive the same benefits as other veterans. Undeterred, Prince became an advocate for Indigenous rights, lobbying the federal government to abolish the Indian Act. Prince's commitment to service led him back to the Army during the Korean War, where he once again distinguished himself in combat. By the end of his military career, he had accumulated 11 medals for his service in World War II and the Korean War, making him one of Canada's most decorated Indigenous soldiers.
I've been to the Korean War Museum in Seoul, and on it, there's etched in the wall is a list of the 516 Canadians that were killed on the museum wall. Yeah.
Despite his heroic military career, Prince faced significant hardships later. He struggled with the effects of racism and the challenges of reintegrating into civilian life. Tragically, he spent his final years living in a Winnipeg Salvation Army shelter. Tommy Prince passed away on November 25, 1977 at 62. His funeral was attended by over 500 people, including dignitaries from various countries, honoring him once more as the decorated war veteran he was.
So sad how we treat each other. It's really weird, and I get why they're doing it, but it kind of pisses me off that once somebody's dead and was just ignored, and felt the effects of racism and all of that, and just after he's dead, it's like, oh, let's have a big honor. It's like, well, can't we honor people for who they are when they're alive?
Yeah. Tommy Prince's legacy extends beyond his military achievements. He is remembered as a war hero and an advocate for Indigenous rights and equality. His life story continues to inspire and serves as a powerful reminder of the contributions of Indigenous peoples to Canada's military history and the ongoing struggle for recognition and equality. Acts of heroism by Canadian soldiers are not only from stories of our grandfathers and great-grandfathers. In the wake of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack, the world faced a new and urgent threat. The United States launched a war on terror seeking to dismantle al-Qaeda and its Taliban supporters in Afghanistan. As a close ally, Canada quickly pledged its support, marking the beginning of its involvement in a conflict that would last over a decade.
You know, this is a good reminder that we just don't honor men and women from our parents' or grandparents' times, that there are soldiers out there right now, right now, doing a job that most of us could never do.
Yeah.
Right? This is, unfortunately, contemporary.
By October 2001, elite soldiers from Joint Task Force 2 were secretly deployed to Afghanistan, followed by regular Canadian Armed Forces troops in early 2002. Initially focused on combating terrorism, Canada's mission soon expanded to include security, reconstruction, and training Afghan forces, thrusting the nation into a complex and challenging military engagement in a country with a long history of conflict. The Battle of the White School on August 3, 2006 in Afghanistan's Panjwai district stands as a testament to the valor and sacrifice of Canadian soldiers. What began as a mission to clear a Taliban-occupied school quickly developed into a fierce firefight that would claim the lives of 4 Canadian soldiers and leave several others wounded. The operation started under the cover of darkness, with Canadian forces approaching the school, unaware that they were walking into a well-prepared Taliban ambush. The enemy force was much larger and better equipped than intelligence had suggested. As dawn broke, the Canadians found themselves under intense fire from multiple directions, pinned down with limited cover. In the chaos of battle, several acts of extraordinary heroism emerged. Warrant Officer William Kenneth MacDonald displayed remarkable courage when he repeatedly exposed himself to enemy fire to assist his wounded comrades. After an RPG strike on one of the school's outbuildings left several soldiers dead or critically wounded, MacDonald made a daring dash across open ground under heavy fire to reach the survivors. He tended to the wounded and attempted to rally those who could still fight, all while facing the grim reality that their chances of survival were slim. Sergeant Patrick Tower also demonstrated exceptional bravery. Upon hearing a distress call from the trapped soldiers, Tower led a small team across 200 meters of open terrain, braving intense enemy fire to reach their comrades. Once there, he took command of the situation, reorganizing the remaining forces and coordinating their extraction, while under constant threat from small arms and rocket-propelled grenade fire. The battle highlighted not only individual acts of courage but also the collective resilience of the Canadian forces. Despite suffering significant casualties and overwhelming odds, the soldiers persevered, fighting to save their comrades and complete their mission. Their actions that day at the White School are a powerful reminder of the sacrifices made by Canadian troops during the Afghanistan conflict, embodying the highest ideals of military service and comradeship in the face of extreme adversity. In 2008, Warrant Officer David Schultz found himself in the midst of a harrowing situation during his second tour in Afghanistan. Leading a team of Canadian Armed Forces members in Zahari district of West Kandahar, Schultz protected officers engaged in diplomatic missions with local tribal elders. As his squad traveled on foot toward a village for a council meeting, they were suddenly ambushed by Taliban insurgents. The attack began with intense gunfire, quickly escalating to a heavy barrage from machine guns, AK-47s, and rocket-propelled grenades. Schultz's quick thinking and leadership skills came to the fore as he directed his troops to take cover in an irrigation canal. Despite the chaos and confusion, Schultz remained calm, attributing his composure to rigorous training and the surge of adrenaline. Demonstrating exceptional bravery, Schultz formulated and executed a flanking maneuver to neutralize the insurgent position. Even as the patrol came under attack again, he repeatedly exposed himself to intense enemy fire to assess the situation, direct his soldiers, and engage the enemy. His courageous actions extended to extracting casualties and orchestrating the patrol's fighting withdrawal. For his extraordinary valor, David Schultz was awarded the Star of Military Valor in 2009, Canada's second highest military medal. However, Schultz humbly credits the teamwork of his entire unit for saving lives that day. He particularly acknowledges the sacrifice of Medic Corporal Michael Starker, whom he attempted to rescue but did not survive, and the light armored vehicle team that evacuated the forces back to the operating base. Now in his 50s, Schultz continues to serve in the Canadian Armed Forces as a chief warrant officer in Victoria, BC. The son of an Air Force captain, he joined the Army at 18 and has dedicated his life to military service. Schultz's story stands as a testament to the bravery and selflessness of Canadian soldiers, inspiring future generations of service members.
Yeah, his story reminds us that heroism isn't about seeking glory. It's about showing up for your team, even when the odds are stacked against you. And it's this quiet sort of unrelenting commitment, I think, that defines the best in our Canadian soldiers.
Yeah. So as we conclude this Remembrance Day episode, we hold close the stories of courage and sacrifice shared by these brave Canadian soldiers. Their remarkable acts of valor remind us of the profound dedication and resilience of those who serve and protect, and how their choices have shaped the world we live in today. For each life given, each battle fought, and every hardship endured, these heroes have left a legacy that extends far beyond the fields they defended or the missions they undertook. Their stories encourage us to reflect on our freedoms, privileges, and the values we hold dear, reminding us of the heavy price paid to secure them. Remembrance Day is a powerful reminder not only of those lost, but also of the ongoing sacrifices made by military families and veterans who carry the weight of their service long after the last shot is fired. It's a time to honor our past and present soldiers' unwavering bravery and commit to keeping their memories alive. So let us wear our poppies with pride, pause in silence, and remember, lest we forget, these words are not just a tribute, but a solemn promise to remember those who gave everything so that we might continue to live in peace and freedom.
An ex British Army soldier taught me the saying, "Love the soldier, hate the war."
Yeah, there's some people who poo-poo Remembrance Day, and it's like, I don't think you get it. I don't think
it's about the people. It's not about the war, right?
No, right.
I hate wars, right? And wars are thrown, unfortunately, often for very suspicious reasons. And I don't want war. I never want war. I'm the type of person that is like, well, if we get people around a table, try to hammer stuff out as much as you can. But people go to war, and soldiers are often join army because they don't have a lot of other choices. So it's people that a lot of people who are soldiers, didn't have the get dealt the best deal in life in the country that they're in, right? Mm-hmm. And yet here they are doing this for us. So in our name, like it or not, right? So, if you want to be pissy not about the soldiers, but about politicians.
Yeah, be pissy about politicians. I'm good with that.
I love being pissy about politicians on both sides of the house.
Yeah, well, it's because they're all dumb.
Dum-dums, as you would say.
Oh, yeah, it's like I have a hard time being a fan of any politician.
Well, it looks like we're going to have an election soon. Everyone's rounding. I think in the next couple of months, they'll probably be calling an election here.
Really?
Yeah, I think the other parties are now rounding to try to get no confidence happening. So my money's on next couple of months that we'll be calling one.
You might be right. Anyway, that's it for Dark Poutine episode 343, Remembrance Day 2024. More badass Canadians at war.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
Let's listen to our first voicemail.
Oh, hi, Mike. I have a suggestion for a case to cover. The murder of young Nicholas Hannon in Langley. The reason I found out about this case is the three accused were childhood friends, and one of them was the son of Catherine Galliford, who was the RCMP spokeswoman during the Picton trial and the Air India case. I'm absolutely fascinated how the son of a prominent RCMP officer, actually two, his dad was also an RCMP officer, could end up being a murderer. This sounds like such a psychologically interesting scenario that I thought maybe, and given that it's Langley, BC as well, you'd be interested in looking into it. Anyhow, love your show. Keep it up. Thanks, Mike. Goodbye.
And thank you. I would say that person is from down under, Matthew. Would you agree?
I don't know. That message was to you, not to me or Steve.
Well, geez, don't get all mopey about that. But yeah, so I looked that up as soon as she mentioned the name, and it does look fascinating. So I will add it to our list for sure. All right. So what do you think that person does, Matthew? Let's give her a job. Yeah.
Okay, I will.
You're so grumpy.
I'm just teasing.
Okay.
It does sound like a fascinating case, actually.
Yeah.
I think she, despite the accent, she now lives in Normandy in France, where she owns a creperie.
A creperie?
You know, crepes came out of Normandy. Normandy's famous for crepes. So
I love crepes.
She does Antipodean crepes down over in Normandy.
Antipodean crepes. Ooh, that's a fancy word.
Yeah, that's the name of her shop.
Yes.
Antipodean crepes.
Well, thank you for the case suggestion, though. Much appreciated.
And for the yummy crepes.
And for the yummy crepes and for not mentioning Matthew.
Well, I'm more upset she didn't mention Steve.
Right. I'm sure she'll call back and with an apology.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it's all about Mike.
Let's forge forth with another voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. Egg waffles, and I hope Steve's feeling better. I'm just listening to your Halloween episode, and I do have a story for you guys. Oh, by the way, I'm Casey, and I live in the southern interior of British Columbia. When my kids were little, their dad died, and we moved to a different house, and my youngest, who was 2 at the time, walked down the stairs ahead of me, and at the bottom I heard him say, "Hi, Daddy." I'm going to not cry. And he had an imaginary friend for a long, long time that he liked to blame things on, but he talked to what he called Bob. And I was just talking to my mom the other day, and I asked her about Brahms' imaginary friend, and did we remember when he stopped talking to Bob? And she said, I had to wake him up for work one day, and he's talking to Bob. So Bob is still with him. Whether that's his dad or not, I don't know. But the house that we live in right now has something in it that I don't see, but when he stayed with us, he had it following him around, and my spouse also sees it. Sometimes I see something out of the corner of my eye, and I turn and look and I go, oh, the sun's shining through the tree and the trees and the wind, and it's just a change of light. But they claim there's something here. So don't poo-poo everything, Matthew. Even though I can't see it, I like the idea that some of it's there. Have a great day. Go shit in your hat.
No, I won't poo-poo it. Like I said in the episode, I think it's fun, and I love the stories. I love them.
Me too.
I love them. I'm going to give Casey, so I think Casey lives in Summerland.
Okay.
And is an engineer on the historic Kettle Valley Steam Railway.
Has that been rebuilt after the fire?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it has or not.
I don't know either. But yeah, we talked about Kettle Valley Railway.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the episode about the Doukhobor bombing.
If it isn't, then it's the ghost train.
There you go.
Of the Kettle Valley Steam Railway.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Casey. We have one more voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. Sorry, it's Jason. I got cut off the last time. Quickly, my experience with the ice storm. Drove my wife to spend in Ottawa. We stayed at the Chateau Laurier for 2 nights, and then we made our way to the Chateau Frontenac in Quebec City for 2 days. At which time, after the 4-day trip in the winter, we made our way back. I stopped in Montreal and took out one of my sales reps who lived in Longueuil in the South Shore, and we had a nice lunch, met with Matthew, and after that we started to make our way back towards Markham, Ontario. A good 5.5-hour drive, but as we were getting close to the Ontario-Quebec border, the ice storm hit. I believe it was the 4th or the 5th by that time, and it had gotten so bad along the 401 that near Kingston, Belleville, I thought about turning over and staying the night somewhere. But the worst part was the trucks, bringing up all the ice and rain and all that type of stuff. And so it was quite a harrowing drive, to say the least. And we did make it back safe and sound, and that's that. If you can figure out what I like to do, or I do for a living, think Crown Corporation outside and part-time 3-4 nights a week, I walk with Yan, which is another clue. Go take a shit in your toques there, boys. Bye for now.
Oh, wow. So we got some clues this time, Matthew.
We got clues, but that keep me clueless, actually.
A Crown Corporation and outside. Okay.
Okay.
So,
well, I think he talked about a sales rep, so I think he sells cannabis.
Okay. For the government.
Well, we have
okay.
I sell my weed to the government, who sells it on. So there you go.
There you go.
And you smoke it outside. I have to say though, Chateau Laurier and Chateau Frontenac, he knows how to treat his spouse, unless his spouse is treating him. I love those old hotels. Justin and I have stayed in the Chateau Laurier. They're lovely buildings, so beautiful.
Yep, I would love to travel more to Montreal, Quebec City.
Do it before you die.
That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome.
Okay, we do have some Donut Money donors, and some PayPal folks. So first up, we have, oh boy, I don't know how to pronounce this one, Jane Skocdopole. Skocdopole. Skocdopole is that's the best I can do.
Great.
Yeah. Where's Jane from and what does she do, Matthew?
She's from St. Louis du Haha.
Okay.
It's a town. It's actually the only town in the world, just so you know, Mike, that has 2 exclamation points in its name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's du ha exclamation, ha exclamation.
Okay.
And the ha is thought to be an old French expression for an obstacle or an unexpected turn. Just so you know, a ha is an unexpected turn. And she is a comedian.
Comedian. Well, of course, if you live in a place named Duhaha, you have to have a laugh or two.
Yeah, and she's features on Just for Laughs often.
There you go. Thank you so much, Jane. Next, we have Daniel Noorhoff. And it looks like that might be a Dutch name. I might be wrong. Daniel is from Alliston, Ontario.
Alliston?
Yes. I don't know Alliston. Do you?
Yeah. I don't know it extraordinarily well. You know that song?
New Tecumseh?
Alliston.
No, I don't. Isn't that...
I know this world is killing you.
That's Elvis Costello.
Allison.
Yes, I know.
So I think he is a potato farmer.
A potato farmer in Alliston.
Well, all I know about Alliston. The first thing that came to my mind was potatoes for some reason. I don't know where that memory came from. I don't know if it's true. Mm-hmm. But when I think of Alliston, the town, I think of potatoes. I could be completely wrong.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, and I just looked it up. It is known for being a traditionally potato growing area. There you go.
Oh, well, there you go, Matthew.
So I must have been there and saw some potato thing.
Well, a broken clock is right twice a day, too, so... All righty. We don't have any Donut Money donors this week, but that's cool. We know you love us.
We
know you do. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal or interact using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my 2 books are available to order via links on the Dark Poutine website or anywhere fine books are sold. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you gave Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Because good eggs win.
Good eggs win often.
Prizes.
They win prizes. Don't win the silly prize, though.